It is hot. Summer is definitely here, and I don't have AC in my house because it's pretty old, so I just wake up every morning and think about sitting in a tub of ice. I definitely don't even want to imagine eating warm foods right now. I remember when I visited China that I ate this really awesome cold noodle dish. The noodles are kind of a jelly consistency, so it doesn't taste heavy at all when you eat it. And it is super flavorful because it's also spicy while being cool, and it's just awesome for summer, I think. So I really wanted to try to make that this week. I feel like I say this in all of my videos, but I've never made this before, so I was pretty excited to see what it would turn out like. So I always like to start by doing some research on the recipe, and this time all the recipes I saw were like mung bean, starch and water, mung bean, starch and water, mung bean, starch and water, and then soda ash? Apparently this is sodium carbonate, this very alkaline compound that's used a lot in soaps and detergents to unclog pipes. Which is a little bit concerning, but it's also used in a lot of noodles and Asian foods, like ramen, to make the texture more slippery and chewy. I also vaguely remember Claire from Bon Appetit making this for her pretzel combos video, and honestly I'll do anything to be more like Claire, so it was time for a science experiment. I wanted to compare the jelly noodles with and without the soda ash to see if there was a difference. It's probably easy to find in stores, but I needed a super tiny amount, so I just decided to make it at home by baking baking soda for an hour in the oven, and then I compared it to the original baking soda. Now, time for a pop quiz. Which one is the soda ash? If you guessed the one on the left, you are wrong. I think it's a little bit hard to see on camera, but the consistency definitely looks different in person. I made a super minimal amount of this, and here's a shot glass for scale. Bonus points if you know what's etched on it. And now for the noodles. To make the jelly noodles, you'll need mung bean starch and water, and maybe soda ash. Somehow measuring is always super messy for me. I accidentally poured too much, so I decided to pick up the excess with my hands. And then I got everywhere, of course. Someone would teach me how to contain myself. I measured again for my non-soda ash batch, and then still managed to add too much. And then I mixed it with water to make a slurry, mix, 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 and now it's time to add it to a pot of hot water. I messed up here and added it when the water was already too hot. You can see there's kind of large-ish bubbles forming on the bottom. So what happened was the mixture thickened immediately. And you can see here that it's also kind of boiling and forming huge bubbles. So when I poured it into a container for shape, you can see that it doesn't look super smooth, but that's why my channel is called Clumsy Cooking, not the female Gordon Ramsay. Anyway, I did the same process again for my other batch, but this time I added a tiny bit of soda ash to the water, literally less than a quarter of a teaspoon, because I am not trying to clean my pipes, thank you very much. And then I added the starch when the water only had tiny micro bubbles on the bottom, and the consistency looked awesome. After about half a minute, it thickened up and looked super glossy and smooth, and you can see how not clumpy this one is. Yay! I let these set for about an hour and a half at room temperature until they were cool to the touch. Okay, pop quiz round 2. Bet you weren't expecting another one, but which one of these has soda ash? If you guessed the one on the right, you're right! Ding ding ding! They actually came out surprisingly different, considering I added such a minuscule amount of soda ash, but the one without it was much more translucent and bouncy. Now to make them into noodle shapes. It was super nerve-wracking to take these out of the container, and I was partially convinced that it would just immediately liquidize, but it looks pretty good. I cut them into chunky rectangles. I could immediately tell the difference in textures when I was cutting it. The first one I had no trouble slicing through with my knife, but the second one was a lot more squishy and would get stuck to my knife a lot. I cut both of them into strips, and then it was time for a taste test. Okay, so here we have our 2 bowls of completed jelly noodle, and they definitely look very different. So this is the one that I made without the soda ash, and it's way more translucent and it looks a lot more jiggly, versus this one is more opaque. So I'm gonna try tasting this one now. The texture is really interesting. So it's pretty squishy, but let's see how this compares to the other one. This reminds me of like coconut milk jelly or something. That's kind of what this looks like. Oh wow. This is a lot more firm than the other one. I'm not sure if this makes sense, but kind of when you bite down on the other one, your teeth will cause the rest of the noodle to squish out a little bit. You can kind of feel how bouncy it is in your mouth. This one, you kind of just bite straight down. There's not really a lot of give in the rest of the noodle. But yeah, I think that both of these textures are fine. I think unless you're like me and you decided to make both of them just to compare side by side, I don't think you would really notice a huge difference. I think it would be very reasonable for you to just skip the additional baking soda step and go straight to this one. But this was a really fun experiment, and it's really cool how adding something more alkaline can really change the texture of these. Now for the sauce, we're basically there. This is pretty straightforward and just uses some garlic, which I mashed with some sesame oil, and then added some vinegar, soy sauce, a little bit of sugar, some water, and then it's time to assemble. Pour the sauce over the noodles and then add a hefty amount of classic Chinese chili oil featuring the one and only grandmother of China, and top it with cilantro and green onion. And the last and most important step is just to marvel at this thing of beauty. My gosh, this looks delicious. Alright, time to try this. I'm a little bit scared because I think I might have put too much chili oil for the camera, but we will find out. Oh my, this is so good. Wow, that sauce is so much flavor. The texture of these cold jelly noodles goes so well with the sauce, and it's flavorful but super refreshing to eat. I'm in love with this. This is so good. If you guys have anything that you love eating during the summer, please let me know and I would love to try them. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye!